Well, there's no doubt. I mean, it's not so much the fact that he puts up a line like he did last night with 14 points, 15 rebounds. I think it was 5 blocks and 4 steals, something crazy like that. It's not so much that he puts up a line like that, but he's been doing that really for the last 18 or 20 games, really since the All-Star break. And for him to be doing that consistently at 20 years old after, missing a year and a half of basketball, certainly nobody, I don't think, really expected this stretch of play from him this year. And yeah, it's been incredible to watch. It looks like the game has slowed down for him. I think the floor spacing that they now have, with getting Jason Richardson back, with Hollis Thompson coming back from injury, with the trade for Isaiah Canaan, I think that floor spacing is really helping him. A lot of his advantage on the offensive end is his speed, and it's hard to utilize that when there's so much congestion in the paint. But no, it seems like the game has slowed down for him. He's making better decisions. He's just playing fantastically on both ends of the floor, and it's been fun to watch.
We were talking about that right before you came on, Derek. How much do you think Michael Carter-Williams leaving has helped Noel? I mean, it seems kind of interesting to kind of dissect what the change has done for Noel, but has it been a positive for him? Are you noticing that, in fact, that maybe those two guys weren't a good match together?
Well, I think it's more than just Michael, because like I said, I think Jason coming back, his shooting, even when he's not making, people respect his shot. I think Hollis coming back, I think those helped as well. But certainly when you take a very negative shooter in Michael Carter-Williams and replace him with Canaan, and Isaiah Canaan's not, certainly a starting point guard in this league. He has a lot of deficiencies. But, I mean, he's attempting something like 7 threes a game in pretty limited time, and he's connecting at a good clip. So one thing he does do is stretch the floor. And I think also Ish Smith is a big part of Maryland's play as well. I think those two have a really good chemistry. And I think Ish's ability to get into the paint, force the defense to collapse, and then his willingness to look and pass the big men, to wherever that defense is rotating from, I think that's benefited Nerlens a lot as well. So, yeah, I do think that these 2 point guards that they have fit better with Nerlens than Michael did, and I think that's part of the argument that we were talking about, right at the trade deadline. There's a lot of some of these problems that Michael had fitting with Nerlens are problems that he would have had fitting with Joel Embiid as well.
Derek Bodner at Derek Bodner NBA here talking some Sixers with us. Derek, has Noel gotten to a point where Sixers fans would be disappointed if he got moved this offseason? I know he's a guy that maybe would be moved, but is he getting to a point where the Sixers almost can't move him now? Has he gotten to that level where this team or any team could build around a player like him, especially on the defensive side? But would you be disappointed now if he got moved?
Well, there's nobody that they can't move. But, yes, I would be disappointed. I would expect Sixers fans to be disappointed. Like I said at the trade deadline, I always valued Nerlens higher than Michael, and it would have hurt me more if they traded Nerlens. I would have been more disappointed if they traded Nerlens, and certainly after this stretch of play, the expectations are raised only higher. That's not to say it's impossible, though, because I do think that fit with Embiid is going to be very important. I do still worry about their fit on the offensive end. And if, they come to the conclusion that those two just don't fit, then I don't think it's completely impossible. It would hurt, absolutely, and they're going to get darn good value for him if they do it. But it'll be very interesting next year to see whether or not those two can play, because what you're seeing, I think, from Nerlens is that he might not be what you traditionally consider a franchise player, but he's certainly a guy that you can build a defense around, and those are very, very valuable in today's NBA.
Derek, how about the draft? Now, a lot of people keep saying, well, they can't keep Noel and Embiid and then get a Towns or an Okafor. What is your opinion on what they would target in the draft if they, in fact, had Noel and Embiid here? Does it matter? Would you rather see them not go with the big man? I know you do a lot of draft stuff. You're already working on some draft stuff. But what is your take after seeing Noel now the second half of the year with what you know about Embiid and the prospects? Is there a guy that you think's a good fit, or is there a guy that you think that they would have to avoid?
Well, first of all, I think you take the best talent. If the Sixers rebuild fails in 3 years, I think it's because they don't have a superstar player. So you take whichever one you think has the best chance of becoming that. But now when you look at the questions between Okafor and Towns, I think one, you're questioning whether or not there's a fit there. And I think the other one, you're questioning whether or not there is a need for another big man. Okafor, I do think, is a legitimate question whether he could fit with Embiid and whether the two of them can work, particularly on the defensive side of the court. So, if both of them work out, if Embiid stays healthy, if Okafor turns out to be, the legitimate low post scorer that we think he is, I do think that you might have to move one of them eventually, just because I don't think they'll work together long term. But if you take Towns, I think Towns fits very well with Embiid. I think he fits well with Nerlens. I think his strength is that versatility. He can move his feet a little bit better to defend on the perimeter. He can shoot a little better. Even the passing, Okafor is more of a back-to-the-basket passer, whereas Towns is a little bit better in the high post and the foul line area. Even that, I think, fits better. Now the question comes in whether or not you're investing too much in front court, and I just don't think that you are. I think there are 96 minutes between those two spots. There's enough room, especially when you factor in inevitable injuries, for them all to play starters minutes. And if you're able to keep them all healthy, limit them to 30 to 32 minutes per night, keep them fresh, not overexert themselves, I don't really view that as a problem. So right now I have Towns rated as the best player in this draft. I would not pass on him just because you already have two really good big men.
All right, Sixers back in action tomorrow night, or Saturday night, I guess. And then, of course, they're wrapping up the season. You can hear the games right here on 97.3 ESPN. Oh, no, tomorrow night. They play the Clippers at home. I'll be there. Yeah, Derek, stop on up, man. We got the suite tomorrow night. We want to
certainly will
try to catch up there. I'll see you up there tomorrow night, man. And the Sixers with an exciting. It stinks because you're like trying not to cheer for them to win, but I mean, come on, it's exciting to see the way they're playing. That's why I hate the way these rules are. But how was last night for them? I know some of the things that went. The Lakers keep winning, so things are going their way.
Yeah, no, the win last night didn't really hurt because the Lakers won. It's starting to look like that worst record or that second worst record, catching either the Knicks or the Timberwolves. That is starting to look like an unlikelihood. I think they're 4 games behind New York and 2 games behind Minnesota. So right now you're really just hoping that they're able to hold off the Lakers and stay in that third spot, which would give them, I think, a 15% chance at the number 1 pick.